Guys, welcome back for another episode of It's Too Late. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by the #1 producer in late night, it's Sherry Voluntary. Sherry, how are you doing?
I'm pretty wonderful. I've been being nose raped all day, but good.
I feel like I'm having deja vu all of a sudden. Do you have deja vu a lot?
A little bit,
Sherry?
a little bit. Yeah.
You do? Okay. I actually have deja vu a lot, and I feel like that means tumor.
Correct.
Okay, well, thank you, WebMD, for validating my opinion. What'd you do this weekend, Sherry?
This weekend, I don't remember what I did, honestly.
Well, that's so flattering because I visited you this weekend. Jesus Christ! Forget everything I said about the #1 producer. You've fallen way down the list now for that.
I had a head injury, and you can't spring everything on me, all right? Because I can't remember things. It's been 2 whole days since you were here.
Oh, I had a head injury. I'm a woman. I'm
old
Jesus.
too.
I'm old. Oh my God.
Well, to be fair though, you did spend most of your time with Mike of Mike and Friends while you were in town. So, this time it wasn't mostly us hanging out because you guys were doing working on a project. So.
Yeah, we were working on a project, and we're not ready to announce that yet, but it's going to be very, very soon, and it's going to involve some funny stuff that you can give us money for. So I'll tell you what we didn't do this weekend because we were so busy enjoying libertarian community.
Right.
Hard to say that out loud without laughing. We missed the Oscars.
Yeah.
Did you see anything? First of all, did you even know the Oscars were coming on?
Not until after they aired.
Okay, so I'm like that too, and you can actually pull up the article down there. I saw the ratings, and so this is amazing. So the ratings not only were the worst of all time, but the ratings were 58% lower than the lowest they had ever been. And the lowest they had ever been was last year.
Wow.
You want to talk about trending in that kind of looks like our analytics on Facebook. If you put Oscars viewership and you look at the way the lines are going, it's basically the same direction.
The only thing is big tech though is still they're pushing the Oscars hard, and they're really not pushing Alan Mosley. It's too late.
No,
for sure.
Yeah. If I was starting off with an advance of 10 million reach,
right,
or whatever, that sounds low for the Oscars, but that's actually all.
Yeah, I feel like you could do well if you had a reach of 10 million. I'm just saying, I think you would do really well.
The thing is that of course, they act like they do the Hillary Clinton what?
Right.
They can't figure out why they're tanking. Of course, we can figure out why they're tanking. Yeah. There's more functional reasons, like having to push back lots of projects because of diseases of unknown origins,
right?
And because all the theaters were closed for a long time, and so there's basically no box office.
Yeah,
like those are legitimate reasons why you could say, well, this is basically like a mulligan, right?
Right.
But that doesn't really explain multiple years of going downhill. What it also perhaps is that people don't really want to listen to a bunch of grandstanding by leftist pedophiles.
No.
And they've kind of run out of patience for that. And so this is the thing I wanted to really hit on is I looked at the article because I wanted to just see, do you ever look things up because you're just like, well, if it comes up at the water cooler, I'll vaguely know what they're talking. Okay. I had not heard of any of these damn movies that were on, that were the winners of the various I had heard of some of the actors and actresses because they're the same every year, right?
Yeah.
But I had not heard of any of these movies, and it actually got me to thinking. A lot of people say that the award ceremonies look, the award ceremonies have always been political. Don't kid yourself that they ever were not political to some degree.
Oh yeah.
But they're so hyper political or hyper partisan even now than they ever were even 5 or 10 years ago, that now it isn't even just because the theaters aren't open. You don't recognize the movies because they only pick Sundance Film Festival hardcore Marxist films, and that's Best Picture.
Right.
And like you compare that to the Grammys where, you know, people used to complain that the only people who sold the most albums won Grammys, and that's not necessarily who's objectively the most talented artist.
Right.
And I would agree with that. But now they've devolved another step further to it's just whoever's most connected wins.
Right.
It isn't even necessarily who's popular or talented.
Right.
And it's kind of the same way about the Oscars. Is that it's not even necessarily a matter of who's talented or popular. Now it's just who's in the end. You know,
like if you did, you know, go just strictly on what sold at the box office, then that would at least be a metric that you could, you know, you can measure that. You know, Snakes on a Plane would have won an Oscar probably. But
well, like I know that there's lots of like, look, I've watched some B-list and independent type movies and thought, hey, that was a pretty good, you know, but because their production values are lower, they therefore need better writing and a better script and a plot and all that you really follow. And you're like, hey, that was unique, or that was a different take on a trope or whatever.
Right.
And if it was based, if at least one of the metrics was popularity, obviously those films wouldn't really be eligible for Oscars.
Right.
But let's not kid ourselves. Those films have basically never been eligible for Oscars. That's how it is. And so it actually got me to thinking, this will be a fun little thing for you and I, is what are some of your favorite movies, and not talking about B movies, but like some of your favorite movies that were also critically acclaimed and won awards or whatever, that they probably either they wouldn't win today because they're not just expressly hyper political,
right,
or they were successful at the time, and you're putting them up next to like the movies that are winning awards now, and you're like, wow,
right,
I'm sorry, but you know, like Saving Private Ryan on many levels is a lot better movie than Dan Gets a Sex Change. Like that's just not as good of a film as, you know, whatever, the Godfather.
Right. Yeah. Well, The Godfather's great. Yeah. I think for me, one of my all-time favorite movies that is just incredible and got so much well-deserved critical acclaim, I think, is Goodfellas. I happen to love that movie. And, you know, it's kind of based on a true story and everything. And so I don't know that would do as well today.
I don't think it would do as well today, and it wouldn't do as well today in a literal sense because Ray Liotta's face has disintegrated. You'd have to find someone else. But that being neither here nor there, Goodfellas was a good movie.
It's awesome.
You know, I was even just thinking of movies like just in the last, you know, like 20 to 30 years, or we'll even say just since the 90s that. Like I was saying before, like the 90s were political.
Right.
Don't like just because you may not remember it as much, or maybe because it was more subtle, doesn't mean it wasn't political.
Right.
But the 90s were basically an anarchist paradise compared to the 2020s.
Yeah, I think one that, you know, you and I had talked about before was which I haven't actually seen, was Django Unchained.
Yes.
That one, and it's, you know, even with all of its themes, I don't think that it's received well by the woke of today. And that wasn't that long ago.
You know, well, we just watched A Time to Kill.
Oh yeah.
Just watched that. And so a lot of people have seen that. For people who haven't seen that, I'm not gonna give anything away other than to tell you that is the movie from which the Samuel L. Jackson meme arose of, yes, I think they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
Yes.
That's it. That's the whole movie, and then it rolls credits. And
speaking of pedophiles, Kevin Spacey is in it.
Well, there's pedophiles in the movie thematically, and there's pedophiles in the movie artistically.
Life reflecting art reflecting life. How about that?
This is all right. So we're going to move on because this is starting to get a little dark for me, if that's all right with you. I'm trying, like, this is not for me, the person, for me, I'm playing the character Alan Mosley, the host of the show, and he is off-put by your comments, Sherry.
Okay.
All right. So one thing I wanted to touch on before we go to our first break is, everybody knows our favorite Fox political pundit, Tomi Lahren. And I actually looked up to pronounce her name right. I've always called her Tomi Lahren. It's Tomi Lahren.
I always call her Tomi Lahren, so I had it both wrong.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show how much you care about her that you remember her name.
She's my fave.
Yeah. So Tomi Lahren, do we have a picture of her?
I think we do.
That's got some serious Casey Anthony vibes to it.
Yeah.
Like it's not that her hair is disheveled, but it's the style that it is. It kind of looks a little,
white trashy.
That appears as if I know where my daughter is, but I'm not telling.
That roll of duct tape is under my seat. I got to get that later.
Yeah. So Tommy there had written a tweet, and it's one of those, that meme of the high school kid playing football, and he says, they had us in the first half. I'm not going to lie. This is textbook that. Pull up the tweet right here. I'm going to read it. No, actually, no, what? No, Sherry, you read it. You do a good Tommy. You read the tweet.
Okay. All the pansy libs can stay indoors with 2 masks, celebrate milestones over Zoom calls with their impossible burgers, vegan shit, and call social workers if they are in danger, while the rest of us going about living our lives in our free freaking country with our guns, meat, and police. How was that? It wasn't that great, honestly.
I mean, I'm just as turned off by that as anything ever. So
I needed more breaths in.
So all that just to end it with, and police.
Right.
And we're willing to give the cops a fair shake on this program.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're totally fair to them.
But it just goes to show, we talked about this literally just last week. It goes to show the complete intellectual bankruptcy of the right.
Yeah.
That they are willing to align themselves with the thin blue, you take this is hyper partisanship, right? You take the pro-police stance because your political opposition has taken the opposing stance. So you feel required to obligated to do so. Mm-hmm. But what's funny about that is that, of course, she talks about guns, or even meat for that matter, which we're not going to go into all that stuff about meat and the environment and all that stuff. But just the point being is that if every Democrat running for office next year all won their races, and this was basically a one-party oligarchy, it kind of is anyway.
Right.
But if it was even more, and then those legislatures, states and nationwide, were to pass all the emission standards and anti-gun legislation, and they were ordering the confiscation of everything you hold dear, who would be the people going to enforce those edicts?
Mm-hmm.
It would be the same police that she puts that big stamp of approval on right at the end of her tweet.
Right. She's a real wood killer. That's all I'm going to say.
So anyway, I had a good response for her, because she specifically had this point in her tweet of, well, we're going to go on living in a free freaking country with those things. So this was my response to Tommy is, well, Duncan Lemp loved guns, and I'm sure he loved meat too. So why can't he go on living?
Oh, that's so good. That is a spicy meatball right there, Alan Mosley.
Well, thank you very much. Guys, we're going to be back with the meme of the week and the viewer mail right after this break. Don't go away. If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley. Guys, welcome back to the show. Hey, Sherry.
Yes, Alan.
What time is it?
It's meme of the week.
You can take your mask off outside now.
Oh, that's truth right there.
Isn't it though? So it's making reference to that the CDC have updated their guidelines on when it is and isn't appropriate to mask up and stay safe. We're actually going to talk about that in the next segment. So we're gonna save that for now. But as we've become wont to do lately, we got a couple of runner-up memes. So here was runner-up number 1.
That's totally accurate.
I bet you can fit a lot in there.
Yeah. Yes, correct. When she fades, that's what we'll see. We'll see the act itself happening on OnlyFans.
Well, you know how it is. It's always flame out, porn, death.
Yeah. I mean, I wish, no.
Yeah. And then finally, the last meme for this week. Let the torturing commence.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
That makes him like one of the 1%, right?
Right.
Of the people who actually watch the Oscars.
Right. It's like Gitmo. That's what they're using to torture the poor souls at Gitmo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you are then.
Yeah.
Let's answer some viewer mail.
Yeah.
Dear Alan and Sherry. No.
That's so us.
Way. Okay. We're going to start off with Andrew Avery this week, who writes, Dear Alan and Sherry, is a firefly delighted if you cut off its tail? Its tail.
Yeah.
I think it's dead, actually, if you cut off its tail.
I've done that when I was a kid. Yeah. They die.
Wow.
Dark.
Is everything okay at home? All right. All right. I like how I was joking, but I was also asking, and then I was just met with silence, what I feel like is Sherry's way of saying, yes, everything's fine. Right. And we shouldn't broach it on air.
You were asking me. I thought you were asking Andrew Avery.
No, I was asking you, because you're the one saying that when you were a kid, you were murdering living creatures.
You can rub their glowy stuff on you, and we tried to rub their glowy stuff on us.
You could just, like, get the little glow sticks and do that.
Right.
You don't have to kill beings.
Well, I didn't know that at the time, and we were too poor to buy glow sticks. They were expensive when I was little.
Too poor to buy glow sticks, but wealthy enough of spirit to kill things.
Right.
All right. Jeff Johnson writes, Dear Alan and Sherry. Dear Alan or Sherry. I don't know. Dear Alan or Sherry. Bubble baths or showers? Sherry, do you take bubble baths or showers?
Oh, I love a good bubble bath. I'm a total bather for sure.
Are you a 9/11 bather?
Yes.
I mean, I knew the answer to that, and for legal reasons, you probably shouldn't have answered it. But
yeah, I'm an Obama bather.
I mean, for me, the obvious answer is showers. And frankly, you find me a man who actually answers that they prefer bubble baths over showers, and I will find for you some kindling. Suzanne Sherman writes, Dear Alan and Sherry, churros or cotton candy? Sherry, churros or cotton candy?
I'm going to go with cotton candy. I love the way it just like melts on your tongue.
So I've actually probably only had cotton candy like a couple of times in my life, and it was okay. I mean, it's just, you just eat sugar. Yeah. Just do it. Yeah, just eat sugar.
It's sugar with a new texture.
So I do have the confession. I've actually never eaten a churro before.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I have or not.
I feel like the Hispanic portion of our audience just is really turned off by this.
All one of them.
Yeah, all one of them. I mean, it's only one of them, but when you figure there's only like 7 people watching the show, that's actually a high percentage of our audience.
That's true.
All right?
That's true. All You're very diverse, okay. Alan.
I've always said that. Clay Davis writes, Dear Alan and Sherry, if you were starting a band, what would you name it?
I'm going to go with Unsmelled Discoveries.
That reminds me, do you remember that skit on Mad TV where it was like the dating service? It was called Lowered Expectations.
Right? Oh, so good.
You should name the band Lowered Expectations. That's
a good band name right there. It's rock and roll.
It's got to be Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters. So that's the fake band from the movie That Thing You Do, which is also a movie about, I mean, every band in that movie is fake because it's a movie. It's not even
Right.
it's not even a real life.
Yeah.
But that's a fake band within the movie about a band.
Yeah. I think you could also do I Hate Mondays because it has special meaning for you.
Yes. Lobsters on a Steak. Anyway, Jonathan Carranza writes, Dear Alan and Sherry, is Kamala a reptilian? You know, Jonathan, I feel like that's pretty low effort on your part.
Yeah.
So you come back with a question that has not already been answered, both A, on this show, and B, is not just obvious.
Right.
Yeah. Lyle Durio writes, Dear Alan and Sherry, who's the most well-known music artist you don't care for? See, I actually already told Lyle, I was reading that sentence and I was waiting for him to hit me with that you've met. But it's not that. It's that you don't care for. Sherry, who is the most well-known artist you don't care for?
I'm going to go with Taylor Swift. Even though I like some of her music, like people are just so gaga over her, and she's
no,
not,
Taylor Swift, not Gaga. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the problem with Taylor Swift is that she basically made a career, and I understand she's done a lot more material since she was much younger, but she basically made a career out of these like pop songs of all of her jilted lovers who did her wrong, and she was writing about those experiences. She was parlaying that experience into song.
Right.
And then but she's clearly somebody who doesn't like absorb learning from any of her life experiences, because she says all those things and then she gets involved with John Mayer.
Right. Not wise.
So now everyone out there now has in their mind that John Mayer did her. Which means she's going to be dead soon. I mean, I know that the medications have gotten much better, but I watched that movie Dallas Buyers Club, and I'm led to believe Taylor doesn't have much longer.
Ooh. And this is what you say about a musician that you actually really love. So
I mean, yeah, he's a fantastic guitar player and songwriter. He's just he literally, when I talk about space aids on the show, I'm talking about whatever it is John Mayer has. I wish Taylor Swift would come on this show. It's a late night show. We need more music artists to do segments so that we have less work to do ourselves.
Yes, correct.
I feel like if there was any chance Taylor Swift would come on the show, it's much lower now than it was like 5 minutes ago.
That's true. Although you did say her ex that she doesn't like has space aids, so
well,
that's a plus.
Yeah. Wearing a mask ain't gonna help you, honey. On that one. Dave Matthews Band. Mike Meharry writes, Dear Dave Matthews Band sucks. Like, I don't even know why anyone likes that crap.
Some of it's good.
So some of the artists, some of the bandmates around him are pretty talented.
Yeah.
And he just goes, it's just awful. It's just awful. I'll trigger a bunch of people right here and say Bob Dylan. Anyway, Mike Meharry writes, Dear Alan and Sherry, because this is for you too, Sherry.
Okay.
If you were starting an NFL franchise, this is how you know it's for Sherry. If you were starting an NFL franchise, who would be your QB? And it can be an active or retired quarterback from when they were in their prime.
Okay. You want me to answer?
Yes, this is clearly for you.
So I, being from Knoxville, Tennessee, I'm going to go with the demigod Peyton Manning. That's my pick.
Peyton Manning truly has ascended to a higher form than the rest of us, has he not?
Correct.
You can tell by how his forehead reaches to the heavens. He has been called. He's been summoned. Peyton Manning is just a national treasure. I don't really give a damn what anyone says. So that's the correct answer. And whoever Andrew Avery thinks about quarterbacks who played most of their career in the Boston area, you're wrong. It's Peyton Manning. And that's just how it is. So guys, we're going to be back to talk about those new CDC guidelines and what it all means right after this break. Don't go away. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Email us at info@alanmosley.tv. Guys, welcome back to the show. We're going to talk a little bit today about those new CDC guidelines that are making headlines. So we've actually got an infographic for you because as we and the CDC are aware, you guys are just way too stupid to make decisions for yourself, nor can you read or write. So you need pictures. You need pictures to help you determine choosing safer activities. Right. Now, for people who maybe have a hard time seeing this on their screens, or for those listening on Anchor, on the left side is unvaccinated people and what they can and can't do. I say can and can't loosely here because the CDC doesn't tell anyone anything. And on the right side, it's what fully vaccinated people can do. Now, I actually just want to kill that graphic for a second. I actually want to just say really quick before we dig into that. The fact that they're using this graphic and they've already separated the two different categories of people, when not a week ago, people like us were saying they're just going to develop a caste system where they exclude us from society. Where's the lie, though?
Right. Here's our infographic.
Like they're literally showing us how they plan to do it. So anyways, to pull this back up. So they've got those two categories of people, and they've got it separated into safe activities, less safe activities, and not safe activities. And then they also have you wear a mask or you don't wear a mask. If you're outdoors and you're walking, running, biking outdoors with members of your household, they feel confident that both unvaccinated and vaccinated people can do so without a mask.
Wow.
Thank you, sir. Also, attending a small outdoor gathering with fully vaccinated family and friends. Likewise, it's safe.
Right.
Attend a small outdoor gathering with fully vaccinated and unvaccinated people. Well, unvaccinated people have to wear a mask, but fully vaccinated people don't. So just at that point, you have now begun to separate the masses into two groups. If you're at an outdoor event with other people and you don't necessarily know them, you can't verify who is and isn't vaccinated.
Right.
Not everyone brought their card, Sherry.
Right.
Okay. They didn't have their papers. So the people who don't have their papers have to wear a mask. The people who do have their papers don't have to. But here's dine at an outdoor restaurant with friends from multiple households. If you're fully vaccinated, you can do that safely without a mask. But if you're unvaccinated, it's unsafe and you should mask up, says the CDC. You should sit at the table with a mask while the other people sitting at the table don't wear a mask.
Right.
And everyone pretend that that's normal.
Yeah.
Attend a crowded outdoor event like a live performance, parade, or sports event. They just flat out say unvaccinated people just should not do that under any circumstances, whereas fully vaccinated people can, but you have to put your mask back on.
Right.
Now that's amazing to me because literally in the last line, they talked about being around other people and they may not be vaccinated, but if you're vaccinated, you're fine.
Right.
But being around 7 people is good, but 8 or more people, all of a sudden the virus of unknown origin becomes emboldened by its numbers. It's like the sand people, you understand.
Right.
They come back in greater numbers. Yes. Yeah. I'm really sad that the audience didn't get to see what you just did right there.
I know.
So for folks who aren't seeing at home, Sherry went full sand person on us, and now we're banned for racism. So let's move on. We're on to indoor activity. Visiting a barber or hair salon. Just by the way, every single indoor activity is considered to be safe for a vaccinated person, but they have to wear a mask, and is considered either unsafe or flat out do not do if you're not vaccinated. So just so you'll know, visit a barber or hair salon. How visiting a barber is just incredibly different from eating at an outdoor restaurant, we'll never know. But there you go. Go to an uncrowded indoor shopping center or museum, but wear a mask. Ride public transport. Attend a small indoor gathering of fully vaccinated people and unvaccinated. So for all of those, it's considered less safe for an unvaccinated person, and they should wear a mask. But even though it's considered safe for fully vaccinated people, they still recommend you wear a mask. It kind of goes back to that whole, well, what'd you take the vaccine for? Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
So, so finally, we'll just end with all the big ones. Indoor movie theater, full capacity worship.
Yeah.
I love that, you know, praising and religious worship is on their list of, oh no, we can't allow that. Citizen.
Right.
Indoor restaurant or bar, and then indoor high intensity exercise. Isn't it perfect that the one considered most dangerous is the one that a lot of health experts actually would say is the worst part of the lockdowns is, well, unhealthy people tend to be the ones most affected. So let's keep them unhealthy by banning gyms.
Right. Oh.
So I also want to point out as well that while there were a few nuanced differences so we can kill that nonsense.
Yeah.
While there were a few nuanced differences in the outdoor activities, for most of the guidelines that they recommend, they still recommend masks for in most places, for most people, regardless of your background, vaccine stance, whatever, they still recommend masks, which certainly, I mean, call me, I guess I'm literally Alex Jones, but it seems to me like if it's nigh unrecognizable what the differences are, then why did you bother getting the jab?
Right, exactly. Like they think we're crazy for not wanting to put this experimental thing into our bodies. And yet the hard-won freedom that they're fighting for only got them 4 more unmasked activities. If they're, you know, and the thing is like the people that aren't getting the jab probably don't care about when they should and shouldn't put on their mask, you know?
Well, it also, too, it reminded me, so just yesterday, the governor of Tennessee, here where we are, Bill Lee, so he had announced the end of the emergency orders or mandates or whatever. Yeah. And so he actually went the step further and said, not only, so we never really had a statewide mask mandate, but he allowed counties to decide for themselves. He's now saying, I'm taking that back. Counties cannot have mask mandates, with the exception of the handful of counties that have their own local health departments, which unfortunately Davidson County, where Nashville is one of them. And Knox County was too, but you told me, so Knox County is letting that expire.
Yeah, and the people here dismantled that board that brought the mandates in, so...
Well, that's how you get rid of the mandate. You just dismantle the board.
That's right. Freedom.
Well, the only reason I even mentioned that is that it just goes to show you that it's not about health, it's not about science, it's totally about politics.
Yes.
In the same way that we see all the data and all the charts showing that lockdowns and masks were on net show no particular correlation to effectiveness. If anything, they're flat out ineffective. And by and large, most of the states that are the most open, have been open the longest, and are most open today are showing better trajectories in terms of cases being down, recovery being up, and obviously, because businesses are open, economic recovery being up over the states that are the most locked down. But just to really drive the point home that it's about politics, so Davidson County, where Nashville is, the capital of Tennessee, they have a local health department, so they could theoretically still have a mask mandate.
Right.
And the governor said, well, I don't want there to be mask mandates, but I at least ask in good faith, will the counties that still have them, will you consider ending them in the month of May? The health department for Nashville said, no.
No.
Not only are we not going to end them now, we're also not going to end them in May. We're going to go at least to June.
Wow. Just because you made the recommendation.
So yeah, so since like June 1st is literally what is there's 31 days in May, right? Just so I don't sound like an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so.
No, there's only there's 30. Yeah. So just to show that they don't answer to you, Mr. Anti-Science Governor, they're going to wait till June 1st to end the mandate as opposed to May 31st.
Right.
Um, so it actually reminded me of a story that I wanted to tell, that I was actually going for a walk around the apartment here in Nashville. And we have this nice little, like, kind of wooded little
Yeah,
circle
like a
that's otherwise,
cul-de-sac
yeah.
thing.
And I was going for a walk, and even though there's still technically lockdowns and mandates in Nashville, um, most people aren't really doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, even as recently as maybe a couple of months ago, people were still doing it. But by and large, most restaurants have begun to just not enforce it. And I don't think there's been a lot of trouble with the police. But I was going for a walk, and I was going by one of the units, and there was a very old lady who lives in that apartment who was at the door, and she was in her own home, and she was wearing a mask in her own home, and she was answering the door because an older lady, but not as old as her, I think was her elder daughter, was like delivering her some stuff, like bringing her some groceries or whatever.
Right.
And they were both wearing masks, and and she was giving her the groceries. Like, like you open the door just a crack, and you're
Right.
like, you're putting it through the door. And like you could tell, like they were actually like emotional, that they were like having to talk through the storm door.
Right.
And like I'll see, like putting your hand on the glass at the zoo, like, I'll see you again, Mr. Tiger, And it made me frustrated. And I didn't run over there and gripe at them, because that's what an altist would do.
Right.
And we're not going to be like that anymore, libertarians.
Sure.
Sure. But it made me sad for them too, because I thought there's no police around.
Right.
There's no enforcement apparatus, really. They're electing to obey. They're going to signal their obedience to the authorities, even when they don't have to, even when there's not someone with a baton telling them they have to do it.
Right.
And it made me so sad, because it certainly seemed like these two people loved each other.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't help but think it would just be so much greater if you would just fling that door open and rip your masks off and embrace one another and share and spend the afternoon together, and don't allow that fear to quite literally drive a wedge between you.
Yes.
And furthermore, it made me think, I'm cautiously optimistic at this point that the mandates are soon to end. The summer's right around the corner. The weather's starting to get real nice around here. And as that happens, more and more people, there'll be people with less patience to stay indoors. Right. as the weather turns, and I really feel like the mandates, even in places where they still exist, they're going to come to an end soon. With that said, if we woke up tomorrow and all the mandates were gone, that doesn't mean that poor people like this
Right.
will go back to living their lives, because the psychosis has gripped them.
Yeah.
It has them. And again, like, I'm trying to be as sympathetic to them as I can, that while I don't believe any of the crap from corporate media or the CDC or WHO or anyone like that for the authorities, they do. But furthermore, they've been inundated with the propaganda for over a year now.
Right.
For over a year. They've been hearing it 24/7 on all the major networks for over a year. And I think what even the powers that be, who may very well want, for economic reasons or political reasons or whatever, they may want to turn the corner on the unknown origin virus. I think that they're actually going to discover that even if they declare victory, hang the banner, mission accomplished, even if they do that tomorrow, they're going to find that things won't get back to normal right away. Because these people that you've been pounding fear and risk aversion into their brains this whole time, they won't be able to just flip it off with a switch.
Right. It's trauma.
It won't work.
They're traumatized.
Yeah, they are. They're traumatized, and that is criminal to me.
Yes.
It is abhorrent. It's not just that we disagree with their views or that we have lots of data to suggest that their policies are incorrect. And it's not just in the more onerous places, like, for instance, in New York, where a Cuomo has policies that literally lead to the deaths of thousands of the elderly. It's not just that, but just that the public at large have quite literally been traumatized. You know, you see comments on social media from people where the CDC tweeted, "Hey, we're changing the policies." And people were responding to the CDC. And I mean like leftist types, like Blue Wave, I voted for Biden Harris, mask up, stay safe. Those people were commenting at the CDC. Now, keep in mind, they've been getting their marching orders from people like the CDC. They're commenting at the CDC saying, let's not be hasty. You don't know who does and doesn't have the vaccine, CDC. I think you're sending the wrong message. I'm going to keep my mask on. And I'm like, oh my God. I can't share a community with those people. I don't. And again, I'm trying to be as fair to them as I can by saying, even if we are politically much different, we could still figure out a way to share a community. But if they are literally in the grips of psychosis from, as you put it, the trauma of 24/7 propaganda, then they're just lost.
That's actually how you get a caste system, because that's the government and the powers that be have done their part, and they've gotten whatever it is they want to get out of it. So they're letting go of it now. But the people that are traumatized cannot let go. It's like, you know, the soldier that gets sent off and gets PTSD. They can't let go of it. It's the same thing. It's a PTSD basically from these people. So now they want, you know, we're going to have to wear a scarlet V for unvaccinated or something.
You should do that, I think. You know, I'll tell you what.
Letter. No.
Since you brought that up, I do actually like the analogy of wearing the scarlet V more than I like the analogy of like wearing the yellow Star of David. Like, I'm not opposed to that, and I'm not one of these snowflakes who's like, you're making an analogy that's not appropriate. I don't. Far be it for me to not find something appropriate or not. But I just like the scarlet letter analogy more. That's all I'm saying. So I actually want to end that point on this. So we actually had something from the census. So the 2020 census is in, and the results are in, and there are a list of states that are gaining representation because of the changes in populations versus states that are losing representation for exactly the same reason, because people have left their state. And it's such an interesting list, wouldn't you know? I actually want to read off this list really. So first, really quickly, just for the historians out there, after the 1790 census, each member of the House represented 34,000 residents. Today, each member of the House represents 761,169 people. There's representative government, as it is known in this country, is a complete farce, because there's just no way that anyone can represent 750,000 people.
You'd have to be the worst schizophrenic to ever have lived.
In fact, there's no place you can, even in the deepest blue or red place in the country, there's no place in the country you can go where you circle the line out until you've reached a radius that contains 750,000 people. And those people could be accurately represented as one body by one person. It's just impossible. But anyway, the state of Texas is going to gain 2 seats in the House of Representatives, and 5 other states are going to gain 1 seat apiece: Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon. But there's 7 states that are going to lose 1 seat each. Check out this list of states that are losing 1 seat.
Okay.
California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then West Virginia. What do a lot of those states have in common?
They're bastions of freedom, Alan. Right?
That's certainly a take. What they are authoritarian hellscapes.
Right. That's what I meant.
They are the hardest left, most just acknowledged Marxist communist regimes are California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Many of those on that list, those are places I absolutely will not. I definitely would never live there. I don't even want to go there. I think I'm going to get killed by the police. That's what's going to happen.
Quite possible.
And so I just want to end it with, what an indictment that must be on the governors and on those states as a whole, and how the authorities within that state have dealt with the lockdowns and the mandates resulting from the virus of unknown origin. That, you know, you can look at approval ratings, but voting on an approval poll from Rasmussen, that's just a click of a button, right? Anyone can do that.
Right.
But when people vote with their feet,
yes,
that's a much more deliberate, concerted effort to signal.
Yes.
Because it can signal two things, or perhaps both. You can say that I'm leaving California to go to, say, Texas because I'm seeking opportunity, or because I'm fleeing authoritarianism.
Yes.
Or it can be both.
Both, yeah.
In this case, I would say it's perhaps more the latter, but it's very likely both.
Yeah. As both of us are people who have moved cross country several times, it's not easy, and so to do that, it really must. The incentives must be there. So that's one thing, and then the other thing is these people. You know, they hate these people. The people that they want to get out of there are leaving, but then, you know, there goes their tax base as well. So that's interesting.
You know, we've talked before recently that what we need to do is we need to just like buy up a subdivision, like not a big farm type thing, just buy up a subdivision and develop a neighborhood where only us and the people we like live there.
So us.
And it'll be like our little private gated community.
Right.
And well, Lyle can live there.
Yeah.
And Celeste. We're just going to go move in with the Meharrys. That's basically what we're going to do.
Get ready.
I think we should do that.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not talking about the Free State Project. That's quite literally retarded.
Yeah.
And because I'm not getting involved in politics. And two, why would I go live up there?
It's cold.
It's cold. If it goes below 73, I'd frankly not like to attend.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of don't want to live here anymore because it goes below that, but.
So I think we should go down to Yulee in Florida where the Meharrys are and buy up a subdivision, and we'll all go there.
Yeah.
So let us know in the chat how much you're going to give
for us.
So you just go so you just go to patreon.com/Alan Mosley, or go to my PayPal and you type in 999-999-99, you put in your card information, and then we will move down to the private community with the Meharrys.
Right.
And we will send for you.
Yeah. We'll send messages of hope. As we are wont to do.
I mean, if you've ever seen this show, you know.
Yeah, you do.
Guys, we're going to take a commercial break on that. We will be right back to talk a little bit more about CDC nonsense, vaccines, and a popular libertarian appearing on the Joe Rogan podcast right after this break. Guys, welcome back to the show. I know that Twitter and the Liberty Sphere was abuzz because the popular libertarian comedian Dave Smith was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And it's a big deal that someone like that was on Rogan and he was talking about his beliefs and all that stuff. But then Rogan was trending on Twitter following up after that because some controversial things were said about how to deal with the pandemic and whether or not to get the jab. So we've actually got a clip from the show. Go ahead and play that clip.
I think you should get vaccinated if you're vulnerable. I think you should get vaccinated if you feel like my parents are vaccinated. I've encouraged a lot of people to get, and people say, do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Yeah. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself. You should, if you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, and like, I don't think you need to worry about this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
But there's a lot of jobs that will tell you you need to have this.
Well, that's what's starting to happen now.
People are worried about them doing it for their children. And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
There's that you might have to have your children vaccinated. And, you know, I can tell you as someone who's both my children got the virus, it was nothing. I mean, I hate to say that. If someone's children died from this, I'm very sorry that happened. I'm not in any way diminishing that, but I'm saying the personal experience that my children had with COVID was nothing. One of the kids had a headache. The other one didn't feel good for a couple days.
Yeah.
Like maybe, I mean, not feel good. Like no big deal. No coughing.
Right.
No achy. No like in agony. There was none of that. It was very mild. It was akin to them getting a cold.
Yeah, and you can have this thing where it's like you were saying, this virtue signaling and this kind of like theatrical display of I get the vaccine, what a good person I am, I care about everyone. But you're like, look, my daughter's a lot younger than your kids, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not injecting my daughter with something to fucking virtue signal. Like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
If there's something that she's of no risk, statistically has no risk from, I'm sorry, I'm not taking any experiment on her in that. And that's my attitude toward it.
But it's amazing that that's controversial.
Yeah.
That even saying that I'm not going to inject my child with the vaccine is controversial.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because, again, we are not talking about even the flu that we just found out killed 22,000 people last year. We're not talking about that.
Right.
We're talking about something that is not statistically dangerous for children. But yet people still want you to get your child vaccinated, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, you should be vaccinated if you are vulnerable. You should.
So it's so interesting that in that clip, they actually talk about, well, why is this controversial? And they talk about the data. They talk about the statistics of, you know, statistically speaking, I mean, this illness has, you know, like 0.001% risk to people under, I mean, and they're talking about young, healthy people.
Right.
I mean, even basically anyone under 65 is practically not at serious risk.
Right.
And especially if you're healthy. And Joe Rogan specifically says that if you're young, if you're healthy, if you don't fit into those at-risk categories, then no, you shouldn't feel pressure to do this. But it shouldn't be controversial for a parent to say, I'm making that decision for my child.
Of course.
As far as statements, and of course our people would say, well, and then as well, there's just tons of data to back up it's rational.
Right.
It's a totally rational position that you just heard on that program.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, some people did take a lot of exception with it.
Yes.
And that is the oligarchy and big tech and all the blue check marks on Twitter and corporate media outfits and people like Vice. So Vice actually wrote an article that was targeting Joe Rogan, saying that this was medical misinformation. He should be deplatformed. That should be banned from Spotify because he said those things. And I also just can't, and these aren't necessarily related issues, but I also happen to see on Twitter this morning, you know, Tucker Carlson must go. Hashtag Tucker Carlson must go.
Right.
And look, I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson, and I'm not really a huge fan of Joe Rogan either. I certainly don't endorse everything either of them say, but I just couldn't help but notice that Tucker Carlson, whether you like it or not, he is the highest rated cable news show in America. Yep. I mean, by far.
Yep.
And whether you love Joe Rogan or not, because, I mean, let's be fair, most of the time he's talking to a fighter who can barely speak English, and he's talking about trying DMT.
Right.
But he is, by an enormous margin, the most popular podcast in the world of podcasting.
Yes.
And on net, of course, Tucker's on Fox News, but even Joe Rogan, I don't think Joe Rogan calls himself a Republican by any stretch. But on net, right-wing people generally subscribe to him more than left.
Right.
The left, this is what they do. The left can't compete with people like that. Whether it's because all you plebs are just too stupid to know any better and you're listening to these false prophets, whatever the reason is, the fact of the matter is they lead their respective fields. and the left can't seem to compete with them. Just can't seem to.
Right.
They just can't seem to. I can't figure out why you don't love Rachel Maddow. I just can't figure it out. Just can't seem to. But since they can't compete with them, they need to bring them down.
Yes.
If you can't beat them, ban them. Like that's how the left operates.
Absolutely.
And actually wanted to bring up one guy in particular. There's a lot of, like, I could make my top 10 list of my absolute most hated pundits and journalists in the corporate media. Don Lemon would be on that list. Cuomo would be on that list. Fredo. Brian Stelter of MSNBC, he would be on that list. And Brian Stelter has taken a lot of exception to what Rogan and Dave Smith talked about on the show. And he was talking about how, obviously Rogan's incorrect. Obviously he's not following the science. All those target buzzwords. Jeez. But specifically, he just point blank was saying, I know better than Rogan, therefore, and I'm in the media. So you should be getting your health advice from me. You should not be taking health advice from this Joe Rogan, this charlatan who's just a podcast. He's just a podcaster, you guys, and he's not informed on the issue, so you shouldn't be listening to him. So Brian Stelter, who for the rest of this program, because he's a propagandist, we're going to call him the Pillsbury prop boy. Go ahead and pull up that picture right there. So... And I'm really, by the way, I'm really talking to the men out there. Western men, who would you rather be? Would you rather look like Joe Rogan or would you rather look like Brian Stelter? Who of those two guys are you going to take like diet and nutrition advice from?
And Rogan's nipples look like they could tear old Pillsbury prop boy over there to pieces. His nipples alone.
I think he actually stores his steroids there.
They're super hard.
By the way, I'm not saying that you're supposed to look exactly like Joe Rogan, and he's had some help, by the way.
Right.
If anyone's pissing hot, it's Joe Rogan,
right.
as we say. But I don't think did you know, looking at Brian Stelter right there, and I know I already told you the answer, but looking at Brian Stelter right there, how old do you think he is?
I mean, I would have guessed early 40s, maybe.
So Rogan is 53 and Stelter's 35.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't think that old Stelter could even look like in his dreams. He can't dream of looking like Joe Rogan.
So anyway, so that's starting to disturb me a little bit. So let's get that out. Let's close that.
They almost look like they could be related in some weird, strange way.
I think they should settle it in the octagon myself.
Oh, I'd love to see that fight. Something.
So I wanted to end the show, or in the segment this week, with one other little story. A good friend of mine was telling me a story that he was just having a beer and a chit chat with a buddy of his, and his buddy definitely leans politically left. And it's not that he's like a hardcore Karen. What's the male of a Karen? A Kyle?
Kyle, yeah.
It's not like he's a hardcore Kyle. But it's that. But he's obeying the rules, right? That's what he does. The authority said to do the thing. You do the thing.
So he's a conservative.
No, he's a leftist. But I repeat myself.
Right.
But here's the thing. So he was telling the story about his friend, and his friend's father had passed away recently. And his father was very old, like I think north of 90. So, people north of 90 tend to die more often than not.
Yeah.
So, but his father died, and presumably complications from the virus of unknown origin may have played a factor in his death. Mm-hmm. But again, the man was 90-something years old. And, of course, one can be devastated that a loved one has passed, but he wasn't just devastated. He felt guilt. And so he was telling my friend, I feel guilty that my father has died because presumably he died of complications. And he said, my friend, I did everything right. I followed all the rules, but I killed my father.
Aw.
because he blames himself for perhaps having given his father the thing.
Jeez.
And that's so sad. Like it's a similar story to the story I shared in the last segment, where I'm frustrated by that because I think to myself, why are you listening to these monsters? Why are you taking your marching orders from people who are known liars and monsters and thieves and murderers and everything else? But now I just feel more sad than I do frustrated or angry about it.
Yeah.
Because I think so obviously any person who was any friend of this man would say, you didn't kill your father.
Right.
He died because he died. He was very elderly. But even if he did die quite directly from the thing, that's what killed him. You didn't. You're not responsible for all the atoms in the air mingling around with the other atoms. You're not responsible for that. You're only responsible for you. And in so much that perhaps you did take precautions, then you did the best you could. But it still wouldn't matter. It's still not your fault. And it goes back to what we had discussed in the last segment about they could flip the switch tomorrow. And all of this can be wiped from the news. You could never hear the thing announced on Twitter or Facebook ever again. They could get rid of all those stupid little warnings on your posts.
Right.
The death tracker can be deleted from CNN, and they can say, all right, plebs, get back to work. We got to rebound on this economy because the midterms will be here before you know it.
Right.
They can do that. But people who are gripped in this fear, in this psychosis, the way the ladies in the last segment and the way that this poor gentleman is, that flipping that switch won't help them. They're still going to feel this nightmare. They've internalized it.
Yes.
They've personalized it. They're a part of it, and they feel that they are making actionable change, either for good or ill.
Right.
And I just plead with you guys, if you're hearing me, that if that sounds like you that's not.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. That is not supported by the data, and you should not be judging yourself so harshly. And if that sounds like someone that you know or care about, if it's someone you want to keep in your life, you're going to have to figure out a way to reach that person and tell them that this cannot consume you. And I know that you have been propagandized to make your every living, breathing moment judged and accommodated by this phenomenon. But you can't not only can you not do it, but when the next one comes down around the bend, and it will, you have to remember how ridiculous all of this turned out to be, so that you're not taken for a ride when it happens again.
Yeah. It's sort of the height of, what we talk about being in the West and being so comfortable that we're complacent. It's sort of the height of that sort of Western privilege, if you will, that we believe that everybody should live forever. And if they don't, it's somehow our fault because our government told us it was. Like, it's really sad. I mean, it's terrible. It is monstrous.
Oh, it's our government now, is it, Sherry?
Yeah, well, not our government, but the government.
It is a government.
Yes.
It certainly is.
Correct.
That's what I have to say about it. It certainly is.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to be back to wrap up the show right after this. Stick around. Hi guys, it's Alan here, and I want to take a moment to let you know about one of our supporters who started a new business. Laura Moreau sells 50 different health and wellness all-natural products, from weight loss, supplements, energy enhancers, body toning, longer and stronger hair, and so much more. Do you like coffee? Well, they even have coffee that'll help you drop some pounds, and who doesn't want to drop a few pounds? Go check her out at her online store at lauramoreau.itworks.com today. That's lauramoreau.itworks.com. Like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/AlanMosleyTV. You can follow me on Twitter. That's twitter.com/AlanMosleyTV. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/AlanMosleyTV. Guys, also, don't forget, if you're tired of big tech censoring free speech, such as programs like ours, don't just complain about it, do something about it by supporting a decentralized platform such as Odysee. You can find us at Odysee.com. You can just search It's Too Late with Alan Mosley or Alan Mosley TV. Go give us a follow, get your views over there. We're actually monetized over there, so you're doing us a favor and getting all of the great content on a platform that is not YouTube. If you like to listen to podcasts more than view late night shows, you can now listen to us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice thanks to Anchor FM. Go over to anchor.fm. It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. It's Alan Mosley TV. Go give us a follow. Type in 999.99. Hit enter. Card information. You can't go wrong. Sherry,
Yeah.
do you have a final thought?
I do. Skepticism. Have healthy doses of skepticism about everything the bastards tell you.
It's the difference. We don't have time for another whole segment, but it's the difference between what people understand open-mindedness to be. A lot of people think that if you're not listening to the authorities and you believe whatever you believe, you're not being open-minded enough to explore reality.
Right.
But that's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
They're not open-minded enough to even take one half of a step off of the 3x5 card of allowable opinion, as Old Woods says. So the fact that you take what the state says is gospel and you're not willing to look at any of the data, any of the charts, to even allow people like a Joe Rogan a different opinion tells me actually you're the closed-minded one.
Correct.
So correct. So on that note, guys, thank you so much, and we will see you